You ever feel like you're doing everything right but somehow still stuck in the same place? Like, you pay your bills on time, you follow every rule they give you, you work your tail off, you don't complain, you're the person everyone calls responsible, and yet, at the end of the month you're looking at your bank account thinking, wait, where did it all go? Not in a reckless way. Not because you messed up, but because something just doesn't add up. You're not broke. You're not lazy. You're not ignoring your responsibilities. If anything, you're hyper-aware of them. You track everything. You cut back. You sacrifice the little things that used to make life feel good because you're told that's what discipline looks like. And you believe it. You actually believe that if you just keep doing the right thing, eventually it'll pay off. But here's the thing, it's been years. And you're still in the exact same spot. Maybe you've gotten a raise. Maybe you've paid off a card or two. Maybe you've even saved a little something. But that feeling? That weight? It never goes away. You know the one I'm talking about. That quiet pressure in your chest when you think about the future. Not panic. Not fear. Just heaviness. Like you're running on a treadmill that's always one speed faster than you can keep up with. And the wildest part? You can't even explain what's wrong. Because on paper you're doing fine. People look at you and think you've got it together. And maybe you do. But inside you feel like you're being squeezed. Slowly. Consistently. And no one's talking about it. You start wondering if it's just you. Like maybe you missed something. Maybe there's a strategy you don't know about, a rule you didn't follow, a move you should have made 5 years ago. So you try harder. You work more hours. You say no to things you actually want. You tighten up even more. And still, nothing changes. You're told that stability comes from responsibility. That freedom comes from discipline. That if you just play by the rules, the system will reward you. And you believe it because you've been taught to believe it your whole life. It makes sense, right? Do the right thing, get the right result. That's how it's supposed to work. But somewhere deep down, in a place you don't really talk about out loud, you're starting to feel like maybe that promise was never real. Maybe you've been running toward a finish line that keeps moving. And maybe, just maybe, the system you trusted wasn't designed to let you win. It was designed to keep you running. You already passed by this? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely shift the way you see everything you've been taught about money, responsibility, and control. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about recognizing something way bigger that's been quietly operating in the background this whole time. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And look, if what I just said hit different, if you felt that knot in your stomach tighten just a little bit because you've been living this exact reality, then you need to know something. This channel exists for you. Not for people who messed up. Not for people who need to be fixed. But for people like us who did everything they were supposed to do and still ended up feeling like something's off. This is where we finally talk about what nobody else wants to say out loud. Where the rules get questioned. Where the game gets exposed. And if that's the kind of clarity you've been searching for, hit that like button right now. Seriously. Because that one small action tells the algorithm that this message matters, and it helps us reach more people who are stuck in the same invisible trap, thinking they're the only ones who feel this way. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, but because you deserve to keep seeing content that actually makes sense of the chaos you've been living in. This isn't just another finance channel. This is the place where responsible people come to realize they weren't crazy, they were just never told the whole truth. So stick with me. Because now that we've named the feeling, it's time to show you exactly how it works. Let's talk about the person who does everything by the book. You know the type because you probably are the type. This is someone who budgets, who plans, who doesn't impulse buy, who reads the fine print, who asks questions, who compares options, who saves receipts, who tracks expenses down to the cent. This person isn't winging it. They're not hoping things work out. They're actively managing their financial life like it's a second job. And here's what's wild. That person is exhausted. Not because they're failing, but because they're succeeding at something that never actually moves them forward. They're winning at a game that has no finish line. Every month they do the math. Every month they make the payments. Every month they stay on top of it. And every month they end up right back where they started. Maybe a little less in one place, a little more in another. But the net result? Still stuck. Now this isn't about being broke. This is about being managed. There's a difference. Broke means you don't have enough. Managed means you have just enough to keep going but never enough to stop. You're always one step away from breathing room. Always one emergency away from falling behind. Always one decision away from feeling like you messed up even though you didn't. And the craziest part? The more disciplined you are, the tighter the grip gets. Because discipline doesn't free you in this scenario. It just makes you better at maintaining the loop. You cut the coffee runs. You skip the vacation. You drive the older car. You say no to dinner with friends. And all of that sacrifice? It goes straight into keeping up with things that were already supposed to be handled. You start to feel like your entire financial life is just damage control. Like you're constantly plugging holes in a boat that's not sinking but also not moving. And no one around you seems to be talking about it. Everyone's just managing. Just like you. And so you think, okay, I guess this is normal. I guess this is just how it is when you're responsible. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. Because you remember being told that responsibility leads to freedom. That saving leads to security. That paying off debt leads to relief. And maybe, technically, those things are true. But they're not complete. Because what actually happens is you pay off one thing and another thing shows up. You save for one goal and life introduces another cost. You finally get ahead and the rules change. It's like playing a video game where the levels keep shifting just as you're about to win. You adapt. You adjust. You keep playing. But you never actually level up. You just get really, really good at surviving the same stage over and over again. And here's where it gets psychological. You start blaming yourself. Not out loud. Not in an obvious way. But quietly. Internally. You think, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I need to work harder. Maybe I'm missing something. So you double down. You tighten the budget even more. You take on extra hours. You research strategies. You follow the advice. You do everything you're told to do. And still, nothing changes. That's when the confusion really sets in. Because if the problem isn't your effort and it's not your discipline and it's not your intelligence, then what is it? You can't point to a single mistake. You can't identify where you went wrong. Everything you did made sense at the time. Everything you were told to do seemed logical. And yet, the outcome doesn't match the promise. You're not moving forward. You're just moving. And there's a massive difference between the two. Now, most people never get to ask the next question. They just accept the wait. They normalize the grind. They convince themselves that this is what being an adult looks like. That this is the price of stability. That if they just keep going, eventually something will shift. But that shift never comes. Because the system you're operating in wasn't designed to let you shift. It was designed to keep you exactly where you are, working, paying, managing, believing that one day it'll get easier. But what if it's not supposed to get easier? What if the entire structure depends on you staying in motion without ever arriving? What if the very thing you've been taught to trust, the idea that playing by the rules leads to reward, is the exact thing keeping you locked in place? That's the transformation that happens when you start asking different questions. Not, what am I doing wrong? But, what was I never told? Not, how do I work harder? But, why does working harder never seem to be enough? These aren't rebellious questions. They're honest ones. And the moment you start asking them, the whole picture starts to look different. Because the truth is, you were never supposed to figure this out. You were supposed to stay busy, stay compliant, stay hopeful, and most importantly, stay in motion. That's the strategy. Keep you running so fast that you never stop to realize the treadmill is bolted to the floor. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The exhaustion makes sense. The frustration makes sense. The feeling that something is deeply off finally has a reason. It's not you. It never was. It was the design. And the design was never meant to free you. It was meant to use you. Now I want to go even deeper into this because understanding the feeling is just the beginning. What comes next is recognizing the exact mechanics of how this works. The invisible scripts, the psychological traps, the promises that were never meant to be kept. That's where the real revelation happens. That's where everything clicks. But before we get there, I need to know you're tracking with me. Drop a comment right now and just say, I feel this. Because if you do, you're not alone. And what's coming next is going to make everything make sense. So let's name what's actually happening here. Somewhere along the way, being organized stopped being a tool and became a test. It stopped being something you do to make life easier and started being something you're judged by. Like, if you're not perfectly organized, if you're not tracking every dollar, if you're not optimizing every decision, then clearly you're not trying hard enough. And if things aren't working out, well, that's on you. You must have missed something. You must have slipped up. You must not be disciplined enough. That's the narrative. And it's everywhere. In the advice you read online. In the way people talk about success. In the subtle guilt that creeps in when you spend money on something that's not technically necessary. Being responsible became a moral obligation, not a path to freedom. And when you follow all the rules and still don't get the result, the blame doesn't fall on the rules, it falls on you. Think about how insane that is. You do everything you're supposed to do. You show up. You pay attention. You make sacrifices. You delay gratification. You plan ahead. And when it doesn't work out the way you were promised, the conclusion isn't, maybe the system is flawed. The conclusion is, maybe I'm not good enough at this yet. So what do? You try harder. You get more detailed with the budgeting. You cut deeper. You work longer hours. You start feeling guilty for the smallest indulgences. A coffee, a movie ticket, a night out with people you care about. Because in the back of your mind there's this voice saying, if you were really serious you wouldn't be doing this. If you were really on top of it, you'd be further along by now. And that voice, it's exhausting. It's not coming from a place of motivation. It's coming from a place of shame. Silent, unspoken shame that you carry around because you can't explain why, despite doing everything right, you still feel stuck. You can't point to a catastrophic mistake. You can't say, oh, I blew all my money on something stupid. No, you were careful. You were smart. You were responsible. And somehow, that's supposed to make you feel worse, because if you did everything right and you're still here, then what does that say about you? It says nothing about you. But it says everything about what you were taught to believe. You were taught that organization equals control, that discipline equals progress, that responsibility equals reward. And all of those things sound true. They feel true. But they're incomplete. Because the system you're operating in doesn't reward responsibility the way you think it does. It uses it. Responsibility keeps you paying on time. Discipline keeps you from questioning too much. Organization keeps you managing the situation instead of challenging it. And the whole time you think you're building towards something. But really you're just maintaining. You're keeping the machine running. And the machine? It doesn't care if you ever get free. It just needs you to keep going. This is where the mental exhaustion comes from. Not from making bad decisions, but from making good ones that don't lead anywhere. From doing everything you were told and still ending up in the same spot. From feeling like you're failing at something you're actually succeeding at, because success in this context just means you're really good at staying in place. And nobody talks about this. Because talking about it feels like complaining. It feels ungrateful. It feels like you're not appreciating what you have. So you stay quiet. You keep grinding. You keep telling yourself it'll get better. And meanwhile the weight just gets heavier. But here's what I need you to understand. That weight isn't yours to carry. It was placed on you. Carefully. Strategically. By a structure that benefits from you believing that if you just try a little harder, sacrifice a little more, organize a little better, then eventually you'll break through. But the breakthrough never comes. Because it was never supposed to. That's the hidden truth. The one that's never said out loud. The one that makes you feel crazy when you start to notice it. You're not supposed to win. You're supposed to keep playing. And the fact that you're responsible, that you're disciplined, that you're organized, that doesn't make you more likely to escape. It makes you more valuable to the system. Because people like you don't quit. You adapt. You endure. You find a way to make it work. And that's exactly what keeps the whole thing running. Now, if you felt even a fraction of what I just described, if you've carried that silent exhaustion, that creeping sense of guilt, that frustration of doing everything right and still feeling trapped, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and just say, I've been carrying this. Because when you name it, when you acknowledge it, it loses some of its power. And more importantly, you realize you're not the only one. There are thousands of people watching this right now who are nodding along, who have lived this exact experience, who thought they were alone in feeling this way. Your comment matters. Not just because it helps the algorithm push this message to more people who need to hear it, but because it's a form of release. It's you saying, yeah, I see it now. And I'm not staying quiet about it anymore. So go ahead. Write it out. Let it be real. Because what comes next is going to take everything we just talked about and show you exactly how it operates behind the scenes, the mechanisms, the psychological patterns, the quiet agreements you never knew you signed. And once you see it fully, the transformation starts. Not in what you do, but in what you refuse to accept anymore. Now let's pull back the curtain just a little bit more. Because what you're about to hear is going to shift something fundamental in how you see this whole thing. The problem isn't that you're not organized enough. The problem is that your organization has become the very thing that keeps everything running smoothly, except your own freedom. You've become so good at managing the system that you've forgotten to ask whether the system was ever designed to let you out. Think about it. When you're organized, what actually happens? You pay on time. You avoid penalties. You keep your credit intact. You stay compliant. You don't fall behind. And all of that sounds positive, right? It sounds like you're winning. But here's the twist. All of those things benefit someone else just as much, if not more, than they benefit you. Your consistency keeps the machine fed. Your discipline keeps the flow going. Your responsibility keeps everything predictable and profitable for them. And this is where it gets psychologically brilliant. Because the same behavior that keeps you trapped is the behavior that gets praised. You're told you're doing great. You're held up as an example. You're the person others are supposed to be more like. And so you double down. You internalize it. You make it part of your identity. I'm the responsible one. I'm the one who has it together. I don't make excuses. And all of that feels empowering. Until you realize that the very thing you're proud of is also the thing keeping you stuck. This is the hidden mechanism. Responsibility isn't just a personal virtue. It's a functional requirement of the system. And the system doesn't reward you for being responsible. It depends on you being responsible. There's a massive difference. A reward implies you get something in return. A dependency means you're holding something up. And when you're holding something up, you don't get to walk away. You get to keep holding it. Now, most people never see this because it's wrapped in language that sounds like encouragement. Stay disciplined. Keep grinding. It'll pay off. And maybe in some version of reality that's true. But in this version, the one you're actually living in, it doesn't pay off the way you were told it would. It pays off just enough to keep you in the game. Just enough to make you believe that quitting would be wasteful. Just enough to make you think that the breakthrough is right around the corner, so you better not stop now. That's the psychological hook. It's not that you're failing. It's that you're succeeding just enough to stay invested. You're winning small battles while losing the war. And because you're winning those small battles, paying on time, avoiding debt, staying afloat, you can't point to a catastrophic failure and say, this isn't working. Because technically it is working. It's just not working for you. It's working for the structure you're inside of. And here's why almost nobody talks about this. Because questioning it sounds irresponsible. It sounds like you're making excuses. It sounds like you're bitter or cynical or looking for someone to blame. And nobody wants to be that person. So you stay quiet. You keep playing the game. You keep being the example. And the system keeps humming along, powered by people just like you who are too responsible to walk away and too tired to keep going at the same pace forever. But let's go deeper into the psychology of why this works so well. Because it's not just about effort. It's about identity. When you've spent years building your life around being the person who does things right, who doesn't cut corners, who follows through, when that becomes who you are, then questioning the system feels like questioning yourself. Feels like admitting you wasted time. Feels like saying you were wrong. And nobody wants to feel that. So instead you justify. You rationalize. You tell yourself it's just a rough patch. You tell yourself everyone goes through this. You tell yourself it'll get better if you just stay consistent. And maybe it will get a little better. Maybe you'll pay off that one thing. Maybe you'll save a little more. Maybe you'll finally feel like you're making progress. But then something else shows up. A new expense. A new requirement. A new rule. And suddenly you're back to square one. Not because you messed up, but because the game is designed to reset every time you get close to the edge. This is what I mean when I say the system uses your responsibility. It's not that being responsible is bad. It's that being responsible within a system that was never built to free you means your effort gets redirected. It gets absorbed. It gets converted into maintenance instead of momentum. And the more responsible you are, the better you get at maintaining. Which means the longer you stay. Now, this isn't some conspiracy. It's not like there's a boardroom somewhere with people plotting to keep you stuck. It's just how the structure works. It's self-sustaining. And it's so normalized, so embedded, so praised, that most people never even think to question it. They just assume this is life. This is what being an adult looks like. This is the price of stability. And so they keep going. They keep managing. They keep hoping. And they never realize that hope in this context isn't a strategy. It's a delay tactic. Because as long as you believe it's going to get better, you won't demand that it get better. You'll just wait. And while you're waiting, you're still paying, still working, still sacrificing, still holding up your end of an agreement that was never fully explained to you. And this is where the transformation starts to happen. Not in rejecting responsibility, but in recognizing that responsibility without autonomy is just compliance. And compliance, no matter how well executed, doesn't lead to freedom. It leads to more compliance. Smoother compliance, quieter compliance, but still compliance. So the question isn't, am I disciplined enough? The question is, what am I being disciplined for? And when you start asking that, everything shifts. You start seeing the patterns. You start noticing the language. You start recognizing the moments where you were told to sacrifice now for a reward later, and you start asking, where's later? When does later actually arrive? And that's when the whole thing starts to crack open. Because once you see the design, You can't pretend it's accidental anymore. Once you recognize that your organization isn't protecting you, it's just making you more efficient at running in place, you can't go back to running with the same faith you had before. This is the revelation that changes people. Not because it makes them angry, but because it makes them clear. And clarity is the first step toward actual autonomy. Not the kind that's promised, the kind that's built. If you're starting to see what I'm talking about, if this is clicking in a way that feels both uncomfortable and undeniable, drop a comment and say, I see the pattern now. Because recognizing it is half the battle. And what's coming next is going to show you exactly what to do with that recognition. Now I want to go even deeper into this because what we're really talking about here is a shift in identity. Not your personality, not your values, but how you've been trained to see yourself within the larger picture. And this is where the real weight starts to lift. Because once you understand that you're not trapped due to personal failure, but because you were systematically trained to manage boundaries instead of break through them, everything changes. Let's be clear about what that means. From a young age, you were taught to color inside the lines, to follow instructions, to respect authority, to trust the process. And all of that made sense in certain contexts. But then, somewhere along the way, those same lessons got applied to your financial life. And instead of being taught how to build wealth, how to challenge systems, how to create leverage, how to question the rules, you were taught how to be a good participant, how to manage debt responsibly, how to budget within your means, how to make sacrifices when needed, how to stay compliant. And again, none of that is bad on its own. The problem is that it became the entire education. You weren't taught to break free. You were taught to hold steady. You weren't taught to expand. You were taught to contain. And containment, no matter how well you do it, will never lead to liberation. It'll just lead to really organized containment. This is the part that hits hardest for people like you. Because you did everything you were supposed to do. You listened. You applied yourself. You took it seriously. And now, years later, you're looking around and realizing that all of that effort didn't lead to the freedom you were promised. It led to a very well-managed version of the same situation you started in. Maybe the numbers are different. Maybe the responsibilities are different. But the feeling? The feeling is the same. You're still running. Still managing. Still one step away from breathing room. And the gut punch is that you can't even blame anyone specifically. There's no villain in this story. There's no single moment where someone lied to you. It's just a system that functions a certain way, and you happen to be really good at functioning within it. So good, in fact, that you never stopped to ask if the system itself was worth functioning within. But here's the revelation that changes everything. The fact that you're organized, disciplined, and responsible doesn't mean you failed. It means you succeeded at the wrong goal. You succeeded at maintenance when you should have been aiming for expansion. You succeeded at compliance when you should have been aiming for autonomy. And that's not your fault. That's what you were taught. That's what was modeled for you. That's what was rewarded. But now you know. And once you know, you can't go back to operating the same way. You can't unsee the structure. You can't unhear the truth. And that awareness, uncomfortable as it might be, is the beginning of actual transformation. Not the kind where you change your behavior within the same system. The kind where you change your relationship to the system entirely. Because here's what nobody tells you. The system needs you way more than you need it. Your consistency keeps it predictable. Your payments keep it funded. Your compliance keeps it legitimate. And as long as you believe that playing by the rules is the only way to succeed, you'll never realize that the rules were written by people who benefited from you following them. Not people who wanted you to transcend them. This is where the mental shift happens. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to try harder and start seeing yourself as someone who's been operating under incomplete information. You stop blaming yourself for not advancing and start recognizing that advancement wasn't actually part of the design. You were supposed to stay productive. Not free. Productive. And productivity in this context doesn't mean building your own wealth. It means generating value that someone else captures. It means staying busy enough that you don't have time to question. It means feeling accomplished enough that you don't feel justified in complaining. It means being just comfortable enough that rocking the boat feels risky. That's the brilliance of it. It's not oppressive in an obvious way. It's oppressive in a way that feels like responsibility. It's restrictive in a way that feels like maturity. It's limiting in a way that feels like prudence. And so you internalize it. You make it part of your identity. You become the person who's good at managing, who's good at enduring, who's good at making it work. And all of that sounds admirable. And in many ways it is. But it's also a cage. A comfortable, socially acceptable, self-maintained cage. Now, I'm not saying burn it all down. I'm not saying reject structure. I'm saying recognize the difference between structure that serves you and structure that uses you. Because one leads to freedom, and the other just leads to really efficient captivity. And if you've been living in the second one while believing it was the first, that's not a character flaw. That's a misunderstanding. And misunderstandings can be corrected. So let's correct it. The goal isn't to stop being responsible. The goal is to stop letting responsibility be the ceiling of your ambition. The goal isn't to stop being organized. The goal is to start organizing towards something that actually moves you forward, not just keeps you in place. The goal isn't to reject discipline. The goal is to direct that discipline toward building autonomy, not just maintaining compliance. And this is where everything starts to shift. Because once you realize that the effort was never the problem, the direction was, you can redirect. You can take all of that discipline, all of that consistency, all of that responsibility, and point it somewhere that actually benefits you. Not just the system you're inside of. This is the transformation. Not in who you are, but in what you refuse to accept anymore. Not in your values, but in your awareness of what those values were being used for. And that awareness is everything. Because you can't change what you can't see. And now you see it. The weight you've been carrying wasn't yours. The guilt you've been feeling wasn't earned. The exhaustion you've been enduring wasn't necessary. It was all part of a design that depended on you not asking these questions. And now you're asking them. And that changes everything. So here's what I need from you right now. If this landed, if something inside you just exhaled because you finally have words for what you've been feeling, drop a comment and say, this is the shift. Because naming it makes it real. And once it's real, you can start building something different. Something that's actually yours. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, that says something. It means you're not looking for quick fixes or surface level advice. You're looking for the truth. The kind that actually explains what you've been living through. And that matters. Because the people who get this far are the ones who are ready to see things differently. Who are ready to stop blaming themselves and start questioning the structure. And honestly, that's the audience this channel was built for. So if this resonated with you, if it put words to something you've been feeling but couldn't quite name, hit that subscribe button. Not because I need the numbers, but because this is the kind of content you're not going to find everywhere. And if you want more of it, more clarity, more honesty, more conversations that actually make sense of the chaos, then subscribe. That way you'll be here when the next one drops. And while you're at it, leave a comment and just say, I made it to the end. Because I read those. And it reminds me that there are real people on the other side of this screen who are done accepting things at face value. Who want to understand. Who are ready to shift. That connection is what keeps this channel going. Also, throw a like on this video if it hit. For real. That one small action helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. People who, just like you, have been doing everything right and still feeling stuck. And the more people who see this, the more we build a community that actually gets it. Now, I've got another video right here that takes this even further. It's about the next layer, the decisions that follow once you start seeing the system clearly. So click on it and keep going. Because this conversation isn't over. It's just getting started.